Dr. Han Ji-won leaned back in her chair, rubbing her tired eyes as the monitors in the remote observation facility hummed quietly around her. The facility, tucked away in Chile's Atacama Desert, had been her home for the past 7 years. Tonight, like most nights, she was alone with the stars. Another dead signal, she muttered, reaching for her lukewarm coffee. The cup had a cartoon alien saying, "Take me to your coffee maker," a gift from her team back when there still was a team. Ji-won's program had once been the darling of the scientific community. 50 skilled researchers working around the clock, scanning the cosmos for signs of intelligent life. Now it was just her and the occasional visit from the facility's caretaker, an elderly man named Mr. Park, who brought her groceries twice a week. The funding cuts had come gradually at first, then all at once. Wasteful spending, the Oversight Committee had called it. 7 years of staring into the void with nothing to show for it. Each time, Ji-won had fought back, secured temporary extensions, made promises of breakthroughs that never came. She glanced at the letter sitting on her desk, the final notice. In 3 days they would shut down the power. The equipment would be dismantled and sold. 7 years of her life, packed into crates and forgotten. The screen in front of her displayed the usual cosmic background radiation, beautiful but meaningless noise. Ji-won had developed algorithms to filter through it, looking for patterns that couldn't be explained by natural phenomena. Tonight, something caught her eye. A subtle fluctuation in the readings from the Buddha's void, a massive empty region of space. "That's odd," she whispered, sitting up straight. She ran the data through 3 different analysis programs. The fluctuation remained consistent. Not a glitch, not background radiation. Something real. Ji-won's heart raced as she calibrated the facility's massive radio telescope, redirecting it toward the anomaly. Hours passed as she worked, forgetting the coffee, forgetting the shutdown notice, forgetting everything except the mysterious signal dancing across her screen. By dawn, she had confirmed it wasn't a pulsar, wasn't a quasar, wasn't anything in the current astronomical catalogs. It was structured, too structured to be natural, but not in any pattern humans would use. The signal repeated every 4.2 minutes with perfect precision. "I found something," she whispered to the empty room. "I actually found something." But who would believe her now? The scientific community had moved on. Her reputation was in tatters. By the time she could convince anyone to look at her data, the facility would be shut down. Ji-won paced the control room, running her fingers through her messy black hair. There was one option. Risky, against all protocols, potentially career-ending, if she was wrong. But she wasn't wrong. The signal was real. The facility housed not just receivers but transmitters, powerful ones, designed for deep space communication with potential future probes. They had never been used for their secondary unofficial purpose, to send messages into the cosmos. "I don't have a choice," she told herself, entering the secure area where the transmitter controls were kept. Her access card still worked, an oversight by the administration that would be shutting her down. Ji-won worked feverishly, preparing a response to send toward the anomaly. Not just random noise, something meaningful. She included basic mathematical constants, Earth's position in the galaxy, simple representations of DNA structure, and most controversially, a detailed account of humanity's greatest challenges. Climate disaster, resource depletion, conflict. "This isn't just a hello," she said as she finalized the transmission package. "It's a call for help." Her finger hovered over the transmit button. Every scientific protocol warned against exactly what she was about to do. Revealing Earth's location to unknown entities violated the most basic safety principles. The theoretical risks had been debated for decades, drawing attention from potentially hostile forces, cultural contamination, triggering alien intervention, before humanity was ready. "We're dying anyway," Ji-won whispered. "What's left to lose?" She pressed the button. The facility hummed to life, power systems engaging at full capacity for the first time in years. The massive dish outside tilted toward the coordinates she had entered, and the message, her message, streamed outward at the speed of light. An alert appeared on her screen almost immediately. Unauthorized transmission detected security. Protocols engaged. Shutdown imminent. The automatic safeguards were kicking in, but it was too late. The message had been sent, racing across the void toward the mysterious signal source. Jiwon slumped in her chair as the systems around her began powering down, emergency protocols cutting off her access. Her phone buzzed. Text messages from the facility director, from security, from former colleagues. They knew what she had done. Jiwon looked up at the star chart displayed on the wall. Somewhere out there, her desperate plea was traveling through the darkness. Whether anything would hear it, and what might answer, was now beyond her control. She packed her few personal belongings as the sounds of approaching vehicles reached her ears. Whatever came next, the universe had her message. And for the first time in years, Jiwon felt something like hope. 3 months had passed since Jiwon's unauthorized transmission, and the small apartment she now called home felt more like a prison than a living space. The walls were covered with printouts, charts, and hastily scribbled notes. Her life's work, salvaged before security had escorted her from the facility. Jiwon sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop balanced on her knees, reviewing the data for the 1,000th time. Outside, rain tapped against the window, creating a rhythm that matched her typing. "Come on, give me something," she whispered to the screen. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed Kim Do-hyun, her former colleague and perhaps the only person from her old life who still spoke to her. She hesitated before answering. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual. "Have you been outside today?" Do-hyun asked, without greeting. His voice carried the familiar tone of concern mixed with frustration. "I'm working. Jiwon, it's been 3 months. The University Review Board meets next week. If you want any chance of saving what's left of your career, you need to prepare." She glanced at the stack of unopened mail on her counter. Among them was the formal notification of her disciplinary hearing. Potential charges including misuse of government equipment, violation of scientific protocols, and endangering global security. "They don't understand what I found," she said. "No one does because you won't share the original data with anyone but me." Do-hyun sighed. "And even I think you might be seeing patterns that aren't there." Jiwon closed her eyes. Do-hyun had been the only one to visit in the weeks after the incident. He'd brought food when she forgot to eat, listened to her explanations even when his eyes revealed his doubts. But lately, his patience was wearing thin. "I'm not crazy," she said quietly. "I never said you were. But you lost your job, your reputation, and you're about to lose your credentials. For what? A signal that no one else can verify and a response that may never come?" Jiwon had no answer. The silence stretched between them. "I'm coming over," Do-hyun finally said. "We're going to get some food, then work on your defense for the hearing. I need to monitor You've got alerts set up. If anything changes, you'll know. 2 hours, Jiwon. Give me 2 hours of normal human interaction." After he hung up, Jiwon stared at the ceiling. Normal. What did that even mean anymore? Since that night in Chile, nothing had felt normal. She'd sacrificed everything for a chance, a small chance that someone or something out there might hear humanity's call. The scientific community had reacted exactly as expected. First came the outrage. How dare she risk attracting attention from unknown cosmic forces? Then the ridicule. What kind of scientist would throw away protocols based on a feeling about some anomalous readings? Finally, the dismissal. She was declared unstable, her findings unverifiable since the facility had been dismantled days after her transmission. Only Do-hyun had bothered to look at her data, and even he couldn't see what she saw. Jiwon showered and changed clothes for the first time in days. As she pulled on a clean sweater, her laptop chimed with an incoming email. Probably just another reporter seeking an interview about the scientist who tried to phone ET, but it wasn't. The sender was Dr. Lee Sung-min from the Oceanographic Institute. Jiwon had never heard of him. "Dr. Han," the email began. Your recent paper on signal detection algorithms in cosmic background radiation has come to my attention. I believe your methods may be applicable to our work in deep ocean acoustics. Particularly interesting is your approach to filtering out ambient noise. Would you be available to discuss potential collaboration? There have been some unusual readings in the Mariana Trench region that defy conventional analysis. Ji-won read the email 3 times. She had published that paper 2 years ago before the incident. Why would an oceanographer be interested now? Her doorbell rang. Do-hyun had arrived. As she grabbed her jacket, Ji-won quickly typed a response. Available anytime, send the data. The small noodle shop was warm and noisy, exactly what Ji-won needed after months of isolation. Do-hyun talked about university politics, his new research project, anything except her situation. She appreciated the effort. You seem different today, he said as they finished their meal. Less obsessed, she offered. I was going to say distant. Ji-won stirred her tea. I got an email from someone at the Oceanographic Institute. They want my help with some data analysis. Do-hyun's eyebrows rose. That's great. A way back into the scientific community, even if it's not your field. Maybe, she said, not sharing her suspicion that there might be more to this request than academic interest. Let's see what they send. That night, after Do-hyun had helped her organize her notes for the hearing, Ji-won received another email from Dr. Lee. Attached was a data file labeled MT Acoustic Anomaly. The patterns in the oceanic readings mirrored what she'd seen in the cosmic signal. The same 4.2-minute interval. The same structured complexity. But that was impossible. No signal from deep space could be replicated in the ocean depths. Unless, Ji-won's hands trembled as she picked up her phone. Do-hyun, I need you to come back, now. As the rain intensified outside her window, Ji-won stared at her screen. The impossible connection between space and sea laid out before her. Whatever had received her message hadn't come from the stars. It had been here all along. The waiting game was over. Something was answering, not from across the universe, but from the darkest depths of our own world. The small boat rocked gently as waves lapped against its sides. Ji-won clutched the railing, her knuckles white, staring at the vast expanse of ocean stretching in every direction. The morning sun glinted off the water's surface, almost blinding in its intensity. You sure about this? Do-hyun asked, adjusting the specialized equipment they'd brought aboard. We're way outside authorized research zones. Ji-won nodded, unable to take her eyes off the water. Dr. Lee's data was clear. The signal is strongest here, right above the western edge of the Mariana Trench. They'd been planning this expedition for weeks after confirming the impossible correlation between her space signal and the ocean anomalies. Dr. Lee had provided them with coordinates, equipment, and most surprisingly, a research vessel borrowed from a sympathetic colleague who didn't ask questions. 1 hour until we're directly above the signal source, the boat's captain called out. He was an older man with weathered skin and skeptical eyes who had introduced himself only as Captain Song. He'd taken their money without much question, though his occasional glances suggested he thought they were slightly crazy. Do-hyun finished calibrating their modified sonar equipment. If something's down there, this should detect it, though I still don't understand what we're expecting to find. Neither did Ji-won, if she was honest with herself. The theory forming in her mind seemed too fantastic to voice aloud, that her transmission into space had somehow activated something ancient that had been hiding in Earth's oceans. The patterns matched too perfectly to be coincidence. I just need to know, she said simply. The next 45 minutes passed in tense silence as they drifted closer to the coordinates. Ji-won's disgrace in the scientific community seemed distant. Now, a small price to pay if she was right about what waited below. Captain Song's voice broke through her thoughts. We're here. Ji-won nodded to Do-hyun, who powered up their equipment. The modified sonar system was designed to broadcast the same mathematical sequence Ji-won had transmitted into space 4 months earlier. Broadcasting now, Do-hyun said, his finger hovering over the keyboard. Last chance to reconsider. Do it, Ji-won whispered. He pressed the key and the signal began transmitting into the depths. According to their calculations, if anything was down there, it would receive their message in approximately 8 minutes, the time it would take sound to travel to the trench's deepest point and back. 7 minutes passed. 8, 9, nothing. Ji-won felt a crushing weight of disappointment. Captain Song was checking his watch impatiently. Maybe we should... Do-hyun began, but stopped mid-sentence as the boat suddenly lurched beneath them. What was that? Captain Song shouted, rushing to check his instruments. There's nothing on the radar. The boat rocked again, more violently this time. The clear sky darkened as though a storm had materialized from nowhere. The water around them began to glow with a pale blue light that seemed to rise from the depths. Ji-won, Do-hyun shouted, pointing at their equipment. The screens displayed a cascade of incoming data, a response so complex it overwhelmed their systems. The boat's radio crackled to life, though no one had touched it. Every electronic device on board activated simultaneously. Their phones, the navigation system, even Captain Song's digital watch. Each screen displayed the same pattern, a geometric shape that continuously transformed itself, folding and unfolding in impossible ways. It's beautiful, Ji-won whispered, transfixed by the display. Captain Song was less impressed. We need to leave now. He moved to start the engine, but it was already running, powering up without his input. The water around them churned, forming a perfect circle of disturbed sea 50 meters in diameter. At its center, directly beneath their boat, something was rising. My God, Do-hyun breathed as a massive structure broke the surface, smooth and metallic, with no visible seams or rivets. It wasn't a submarine or any human-made vessel. The object was perfectly geometric, its surface reflecting the sky like a dark mirror. A section of the object's surface rippled and opened, revealing an entrance. No light came from within, just a perfect darkness that seemed to absorb the sunlight around it. Captain Song was frantically radioing for help, but only static answered him. What is that thing? He demanded. Ji-won stepped forward, her scientific mind racing to process what she was seeing. It's exactly what I was looking for, she said quietly. First contact. A beam of light shot from the opening, scanning over their small boat before focusing on Ji-won. She felt no heat, no radiation, just a gentle tingling as the light passed over her. Ji-won, don't move, Do-hyun warned, but she was already stepping forward, drawn to the edge of the boat. The light pulsed in a rhythm she recognized immediately. The exact pattern of her original transmission to space. It was communicating. It understands, she said, her voice filled with wonder. It received my message. The beam widened, projecting what looked like complex hieroglyphs into the air between them and the object. The symbols rearranged themselves, continuously, as if searching for a language they could understand. Ji-won reached for her tablet and quickly typed a simple mathematical sequence, the universal language she had included in her original transmission. The light absorbed this information, pulsed 3 times, and then projected a new set of symbols. It's trying to establish communication protocols, Do-hyun said, his earlier fear giving way to scientific curiosity. He had moved beside Ji-won, his tablet ready to record everything. Captain Song watched in stunned silence from the helm. The projected symbols gradually transformed into recognizable shapes, first mathematical equations, then simple pictograms, and finally, to their astonishment, English words. Guardian protocol activated. Contact initiated. You called. We answer. Ji-won's hands trembled as she typed a response. Who are you? The reply came instantly. We have always been here, waiting. For the right signal, you found the key. As the sun reached its zenith above them, the 3 humans stood frozen on their small boat, facing a truth that would forever change humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. The first contact hadn't come from distant stars. It had emerged from the depths of Earth's own oceans, awakened by a desperate call sent by a scientist who refused to give up. Ji-won looked into the perfect darkness of the entrance and knew with absolute certainty this was just the beginning. 3. Government facility buzzed with activity as Ji-won stared through the one-way glass. On the other side, submerged in a specially designed tank of seawater, floated a small portion of what they now called the Guardian, a fragment willingly given after the initial contact 3 weeks ago. Scientists in hazmat suits moved around, it cautiously, taking measurements and samples. "Still can't believe we're keeping this from the public," Do-hyun said, handing her a cup of coffee. Ji-won accepted it gratefully. Sleep had become a luxury since their boat trip. Within hours of their encounter, military helicopters had descended, whisking them to this underground facility. Their boat captain, Song, was somewhere else in the complex, likely telling his story for the 100th time to government officials. "They're afraid of panic," she replied, watching as the fragment pulsed with soft blue light. "Can't say I blame them." The door behind them opened. Park Sun-ho, the stern-faced government scientist who'd been assigned to lead the research team, entered with a tablet in hand. Unlike most officials who treated Ji-won with suspicion, Park had shown her respect from the beginning, scientist to scientist. "Dr. Han, we've completed the preliminary analysis of the communication data," Park said, his voice tired but excited. "You should see this." He placed the tablet on the table. On screen was a 3-dimensional model of DNA, but with subtle, critical differences from human genetic structure. "This is what the Guardian sent in the last data packet?" Ji-won asked. Park nodded. "Along with this." He swiped to reveal an evolutionary tree, starting with single-celled organisms and branching upward. One branch led to humans. Another parallel branch led to something else, something not documented in any biological record. "They've been evolving alongside us," Do-hyun whispered, leaning closer to the screen. "For billions of years." "Not just alongside us," Park said. "Before us. The Guardian isn't alien, at least not in the way we imagined. It's terrestrial but pre-human. Way pre-human." Ji-won felt a chill run down her spine. "How old?" "Based on the mineral analysis of the fragment, at least 3 billion years. Park's voice was matter-of-fact, but his hands trembled slightly. "It was here before multicellular life existed on land, before dinosaurs, before anything we would recognize as life." The implications hit Ji-won like a physical blow. Humanity wasn't the first intelligent species on Earth. Not even close. "There's more," Park continued, swiping to a new image. A map of Earth with dozens of blinking points scattered across the ocean floors. "These are locations where we've detected similar structures. They form a network, primarily in the deepest parts of our oceans." Do-hyun let out a low whistle. "They're everywhere, and they've been communicating with each other for billions of years," Park added, "using methods we're only beginning to understand." A notification popped up on the tablet. Park checked it and straightened. "It's ready to speak again. They requested your presence, Dr. Han." Ji-won followed Park through a series of security checkpoints until they reached the communication room. Unlike the observation area, this room housed a direct interface with the main Guardian structure, which remained deep in the ocean. A large screen dominated the wall, currently displaying a swirling pattern of light. "We've established a rudimentary translation protocol," a young technician explained, tapping at his keyboard. "Still rough, but better than the pictograms." The screen flickered and words appeared. "The human called Ji-won is present. We may proceed." Ji-won stepped forward. "I'm here. I have questions." "As do we. You are the first to send the correct signal pattern. Many have tried." This was new information. "Others have tried to contact you?" "For centuries. Your ancestors sensed our presence. They called us gods of the deep. Leviathan, Kraken, none understood." Ji-won tried to process this. Myths of sea monsters throughout human history. Had they all been glimpses of the Guardian? "Why reveal yourselves now?" she asked. The screen pulsed before answering. Your message contained the key sequence, mathematical constants combined with biological identifiers and a call for help. This triggered the ancient protocols. What protocols? We are guardians, watchers, caretakers of evolutionary experiments. The room fell silent as the implications of these words sank in. Are you saying, Ji-won began carefully, that life on Earth is an experiment? One of many, seeded across compatible worlds by the ones who came before. Our purpose is to observe, protect, and intervene only if the correct call is made. Do-hyun, who had been silently watching, stepped forward. Who came before? Who created you? The screen went dark for a moment, then displayed what looked like a galaxy, but with connections between stars that shouldn't have been possible. They. Left long ago, we remain. Ji-won's scientific mind raced to make sense of this revelation. And humans? What are we in this experiment? One evolutionary path. Not the first to achieve intelligence on this world, not the last, but the first to. Send the correct signal pattern. Images flashed across the screen. Ancient civilizations that had risen and fallen before recorded history. Species that had evolved intelligence but had died out, leaving no trace in the fossil record. Wait, Park interrupted. You're saying there were intelligent species before humans? Where's the evidence? The deep ocean preserves nothing. Time erases all. Ji-won thought of everything humanity had built. Cities, monuments, technologies, all potentially gone without a trace given enough time. You said you intervene if called correctly, she pressed. Intervene how? The screen displayed Earth, surrounded by what looked like a protective field. Your planet approaches multiple extinction thresholds: climate destabilization, resource depletion, biological collapse. These are common evolutionary bottlenecks. Few species survive them without guidance. And you'll guide us? Do-hyun asked, skeptically. We will share knowledge. You must implement it. The experiment continues. As the implications of the Guardian's words echoed through the room, Ji-won realized the true weight of what her desperate transmission had unleashed. Humanity had never been alone on Earth, and now, faced with its greatest challenges, would have to come to terms with being neither the first nor potentially the most advanced intelligence on their own planet. The revelation was just beginning. Year had passed since the world learned the truth. Ji-won remembered the day clearly. The global broadcast, the stunned faces of news anchors, the mixture of fear and wonder that had swept across humanity like a tidal wave. Now, standing on the observation platform overlooking the newly constructed Guardian Interface Center, she could hardly believe how far they'd come. Dr. Han, they're ready for you, said a young assistant looking both nervous and excited. New staff always reacted that way around her now. Being the person who had made first contact carried a certain weight. Ji-won nodded and followed the assistant through the gleaming hallway. The facility had been built in record time, a marvel of cooperation between nations that had once pointed weapons at each other. Nothing united people quite like discovering they weren't alone, or at the top of Earth's evolutionary ladder. The central chamber hummed with activity. Screens displayed data streams from Guardian structures around the world, each one now actively communicating with humanity. In the center of the room stood Lee Tae-ho, the diplomat who had emerged as humanity's primary negotiator in this new relationship. There you are, Tae-ho said, smiling warmly as she approached. Our friends have been asking for you. The main communication array flickered to life, displaying the now familiar swirling patterns that preceded Guardian messages. Everyone in the room fell silent. Ji-won has arrived. The first phase is complete. We may proceed to implementation. Ji-won stepped forward. In the early days, she had been nervous speaking to the Guardians. Now it felt almost natural. The atmospheric processors have been constructed according to your specifications. 83 units placed at strategic locations worldwide. Acceptable. Activation sequence will begin at next lunar peak. Tae-ho moved beside her. The world leaders have concerns about potential side effects. They're asking for more details about how the technology works. There was a pause before the Guardian responded. G1 had learned that these delays weren't about processing or thinking. The Guardians thought faster than any computer. They were considering how much knowledge to share. The technology converts excess carbon compounds into stable crystalline structures while releasing oxygen. The process is self-limiting and will cease when balance is restored. More detailed explanation requires concepts your languages cannot yet express. Ji-won watched Taeho's face. He was a skilled diplomat, but the Guardian's occasionally dismissive attitude toward human understanding still frustrated him. "We're learning quickly," she offered, both to the Guardian and as reassurance to Taeho. "Yes, faster than anticipated. This is encouraging." High praise, coming from beings that had watched species rise and fall for billions of years. The meeting continued for another hour, covering the next stages of what the Guardians called stabilization protocols, solutions to problems humanity had struggled with for generations. Clean energy systems that drew power directly from Earth's magnetic field. Agricultural techniques that could restore depleted soil in months instead of decades. Medical advances that could eliminate whole categories of disease. Not everyone had embraced these changes. Religious organizations worldwide were split, some seeing the Guardians as divine messengers, others as demonic tempters. Conspiracy theories flourished despite all evidence, and corporations with profits tied to old technologies fought against the new implementations at every turn. As the meeting concluded, Ji-won felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She had become the bridge between two intelligent species sharing one planet, one ancient and patient, the other young and desperate. "You look tired," Do-hyun said as they walked through the garden area that surrounded the facility. Unlike the sterile government buildings of the early days, the Interface Center had been designed with living spaces that celebrated Earth's biodiversity, a suggestion from the Guardians themselves. "Just thinking about the summit next week," Ji-won replied. "The first anniversary of the public revelation. All those world leaders in one place, still arguing about how much Guardian technology to implement." Do-hyun smiled. "Remember when our biggest worry was your disciplinary hearing at the university?" They shared a laugh. The university had not only dropped all charges, but had created an entirely new department for Guardian studies with Ji-won as its head. She had declined, preferring to work directly at the Interface Center. "Have you visited the temple yet?" Do-hyun asked, nodding toward the eastern edge of the complex. Ji-won shook her head. The temple wasn't official. Just what people called the quiet space where visitors could view a Guardian fragment up close. It had become a pilgrimage site of sorts, drawing people from around the world. "Too many people taking selfies," she said with a small smile. They reached a viewing platform that overlooked the ocean. In the distance, the water churned where one of the larger Guardian structures had partially surfaced. These appearances had become more common as the partnership deepened. "Did you ever imagine this?" Do-hyun asked quietly. "When you sent that transmission?" Ji-won watched the distant waters. "I hoped someone would answer. I never dreamed they were already here." A group of schoolchildren passed by on a tour, pointing excitedly at the ocean disturbance. Their teacher explained something about the Guardians, gesturing enthusiastically. These children would grow up in a world where humans weren't alone, where ancient intelligences shared their planet and their future. The fishing communities near Jeju Island reported strange lights last night, Do-hyun mentioned. The Guardians said they're establishing a new hub there. That's the 5th one this month, Ji-won noted. They're expanding their surface presence faster than expected. Neither voiced the question that lingered in many minds. Were the Guardians merely helping humanity, or gradually taking control? As if sensing her thoughts, Do-hyun said, "Park's team finished analyzing those rock samples from the deep sea site. The mineral composition doesn't match anything in Earth's geological record." Ji-won raised an eyebrow. "The Guardians said they evolved here. Maybe parts of them did, but their technology, some of it might have come from elsewhere. Before," She could respond, her communication device chimed. The message was simple. Next phase ready. Your presence requested. G1 took a deep breath and looked out at the horizon once more. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Whatever came next, whether true partnership or something more complicated, humanity's path had irrevocably changed the day she had sent that desperate call into the void. They never stop working, do they? Do-hyun said. Neither do we, G1 replied, turning toward the interface center. That's probably the first thing our species truly have in common. As she walked back, G1 glimpsed her reflection in the building's glass walls. Still the same person who had risked everything on a hunch. The world had transformed around her, but the core of scientific curiosity that had driven her remained unchanged. The new partnership between humanity and its ancient cohabitants was just beginning. What it would ultimately mean for Earth's future remained to be seen. But for the first time in generations, that future contained something that had long seemed out of reach: hope.